Good afternoon. I call to order the Lake Havasu City Council work session on Tuesday, April 27th at 5 p.m. Citizens can view the meeting in public, in person, or on live on Channel 4, or they can also go to lhcaz.gov/TV. If you'd please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Ms. Davis, are you calling the roll? Yes.
Council members Nancy Campbell. Here. Jim Dolan.
I am available.
David Lane.
Here.
Michelle Lynn. Here. Cameron Moses. Vice Mayor Jenny Koch. Here. Mayor Cal Sheehy.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to 4, our public hearings. Item 4.1 is presentation and discussion regarding the Lake Havasu City Transit Plan overview. Mr. Cypress, welcome.
Are we okay? Thanks. Good afternoon, and thank you for having us, Honorable Mayor and Council. And just kind of give you a quick overview of what we're going to do today. Do an introduction, then we're going to do a short PowerPoint. And in the PowerPoint, we'll have a lot of information provided there. But if you could keep all questions towards the end. And then from that point on, we do have some boards if you folks want to review with potential routes, 4 routes coming up, including our pilot route, as well as vehicles and population studies of density areas in where the routes that we're going to take. So with that point, I'll go ahead and get started with our PowerPoint. So Lake Havasu City has provided subsidized public transit since late in the 1980s, various configurations such as dial-a-ride and demand response, including a fixed route system that started in 2006. The fixed route transit system had provided about 125,000 rides at its peak annually, with a population of 52,580. The fixed route system ended operations in 2014 and was replaced with Havasu Mobility. Since its implementation, Havasu Mobility has been meeting the needs of older adults and people with disabilities. The need for a public transit system still exists in the city and is really called upon since we had our best years in 17, 18 with that. So the public was coming to us asking, is there ever going to be another public transit for my kids to get to work and this and that. So we'll lead into our next slide then. Thank you. The Transit Department requested a study be completed by the Lake Havasu Metropolitan Planning Organization in late 2018. This was requested due to the steady increase of ride requests other than what Havasu Mobility could provide under its scope of work. Now, Havasu Mobility was only really funded for disabled, veterans, and seniors. We did have a small component for public, but it was really focused only on them. So again, the request for transit came more and more, so we decided to ask the Metropolitan Planning Organization to start a study for us. Also, the study was required to receive federal funding. We had a study back in early 2000s for the funding that we received for the previous route, but it was different funding because our population was under 50,000 at that point. Following the completion of the transit study in 2019, the City Council approved and adopted the transit study in January of 2020. The Transit Department began work on identifying procedures and policies needed to apply for future federal transit funds. Unfortunately, the pandemic slowed down the movement of all federal things as well as everything as far as funding. But Havasu Mobility continued to operate all through the pandemic. Our ridership did not start to increase until June or July of 2020. And we still do rides, but now the ridership's coming back. During this time, the Transit Department work began on the implementation plan, and we initiated phase 1 in July of 2020. From July 2020 till now, accomplishments 10 months after the first phase began. We identified a name for a bridge as our fixed route. We are utilizing smaller 14-passenger buses for a route. All the buses are ADA accessible, and so will our flex vehicles. The majority of stops will be flag stops, reducing the need for bus stop structures. Flag stops will be identified by a signage rather than a bus stop structure. So this will allow for more convenience and not a big bus stop benches that you see all over the city. So currently right now we're looking at probably 3 actual bus structures for our first phase, first route, and 7 signs on poles for that. So we'll use existing signs that the city already has and attach the poles and attach the signage to those. The first 2 fixed routes will focus on the downtown corridor areas. These will be businesses, medical, grocery, shopping centers, and food establishments. So the first one will run as a pilot only, then we'll go from there as we decide to go kick off our first route. In 2022, the beginning of that, we'll have Express to the Shops. That'll be started shortly, probably January, February of that year. This will be something that we've discussed previously with the owners of the shops. It was actually discussed back when the transit plan was being done in 2018, 2019. They're looking at it for not only the retail side of it, but for employee transportation. The other thing we've done is we've identified a centralized public transit hub in the Pima Wash parking lot area. We'll begin design phase on this next year with an estimated construction start time of fiscal year 23-24. The hub will include accessible public restrooms, small transit office, covered area for transit and city vehicles, and for individuals waiting for the transit service. Eventually, city and retail electric vehicle charging stations will be available in that hub. Additional transit services and technology. Curb-to-curb service is under the name of Flex. So we'll have 3 names of transit services we'll be delivering. This service will complement fixed route service by providing accessible rides to individuals who cannot get to the bus stops or the fixed route areas. It'll also provide similar service to what Havasu Mobility currently provides. And this service will run as the same hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, as Havasu Mobility does. Our third transit component, and this will probably be the cherry on top in a year or 2, is demand response service under the name Direct. This demand response service will provide transportation from location to destination within one of the 3 zones within the city limits. We've identified zones south, central, and north. Rides within the same zone are $3 per person each way. If traveling is going out of the zone, say somebody's coming from the south side and wants to go to Ross into the central zone, the most they'll pay is $5 for that ride, one way per person. If anybody's coming in out of the north or south zones and wants to go to the transit hub, they'll be able to get there just for $3 because the transit hub will eventually be the center area of all the transit components coming together. So the fixed route, flex, and direct will all go to the transit hub eventually throughout the day. How to use public transit training will be provided prior to launch of each service. Schedule and types of training will be announced on the city website, which is www.lhcaz.gov/transit. The transit department will provide information on each public transit as it becomes available, as well as instructions on how to ride through the transit system of Lake Havasu City. There's initial transit information currently on the website, but we'll begin providing weekly updates on Monday, May 10th, and the public is strongly encouraged to go to that to see all updates. You can also provide questions to the transit department by emailing us at transit@lhcaz.gov, and we'll get any of those transit related questions answered for everybody. Transit management platform, that's going to be our next one. Lake Havasu City Transit will utilize a custom-built public transit technology solution to assist with managing and delivering accessible transit options to the Lake Havasu City community. This new public transit system will utilize cashless fare system for all three transit types. In keeping with the practice of utilizing technology, we will offer digital media advertising in all transit vehicles, starting with the fixed routes. Print media advertising will still be offered, but at limited due to size and placement. Training will be offered through online videos or in person at the transit office. Procedures will be posted once available online and in print and available at City Hall in the transit office when we have those out. We also purchased a mapping solution. This solution helped us produce routes that also provides up-to-date demographic information that utilizes up-to-date demographics like weekly it's updated. So we're able to pinpoint our routes and where they're going, as well as use information from our direct, which is our demand response. We can see high yield areas within the community, and then we can use this mapping solution to help to identify if that's worth putting a stop going up that way or a route. Timelines. The pilot fixed route will begin May 2021 to June 2021 and will follow the downtown circulator. This will be the trial run of the system, and it's going to be the trial run only. Once we decide if this is going to work, the fixed downtown route will do the corridor, and it should begin August 2021. This route will be similar to the pilot route if there's no changes that we deem that we need to change before we start it. The second fixed route is will be focusing on a restaurant and lodging, and that'll be early in 2022. Two tasks remain before starting the second route. A pilot route still has to be defined officially, and then we have to run pilot routes to check for timing and accessibility for the bus. Plus, we're also waiting for our other bus to come in, and that's on order right now being made. So that may not be here till January or February, and then we'll be ready to launch. The third fixed route is the express to the shops. Again, this will be early 2022. This route will also stop at Food City Shopping Center on the way back into the transit hub into town. And that's all this route will do. It'll leave, every time it comes back in, it'll stay like 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the hub and then pull back out, head down to the shops. It'll have a stop in front of Walmart, in front of the traffic circle where the theaters are in the food court at the mall. And then it'll head back down to Food City, Staples area, then head straight back to the transit hub. Depending on what data we collect from the south side, that'll determine how quickly we will make a route to the south side, an actual fixed route. But we really think that the direct will take up that need for a fixed route going in other parts of the city. And just a reminder, Bridge is the fixed route, Flex is the curb to curb, and Direct is our demand response. And there's our new logos, and we're currently getting put on our vehicles as they come in. People may have seen them driving around. We're driving one of the buses around right now just to get exposure. When we do run our pilot routes, those are going to be no charge for the entire time. So we're looking probably 60 to 120 days just to get people familiar with the routes and getting used to using the applications. And then I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cypress. Bring it up to the council for any questions of Mr. Cypress. Councilmember Lane.
Thank you. Good job, Patrick.
Thank you.
So, along with several other people up here, we've been in this since the beginning, and starting with when we're sitting on the MPO board and watching them put together their transit plan, and then turning it over to the city and watching all of you do the work that you're doing and putting this together for the citizens. You've done a great job.
Thank you.
So I have a few questions. The first one being the names that you have. You have Bridge, Flex, Direct. Flex, that makes a lot of sense to me because it's flexible.
Yes.
And curb to curb, Direct, it's demand, you call them Direct. The name Bridge, does it have anything to do with the bridge? Because to me, if I see bridge on the side of the bus, I'm going to think I get to get on that bus to take a ride to the bridge.
Well, no. Well, eventually we will, but we want to focus that because that is one of the, obviously the namesake of the city. So we still want to connect the bridge to the fixed route. But yeah, good question. We've had that brought up, but we had other other names out there, but we wanted to put something that's still connected, really the name of the bridge to the fixed route.
Okay.
But it's not, we're going to get on the bridge.
Is it set in stone already? Is it already set in stone?
Yeah.
Printed on the bus.
That's on the bus.
Oh, no, I saw the bus out there. I saw that. To me, it just that for the future, I think there could be some confusion there. So just something to think about. And then when we talk about the centralized public transit hub in the Pima Wash lot, so far you guys have done this without any additional funding from the city, correct? It's all been for the most part,
yes,
the grant monies and the dollars that we have used that we had been giving back to the federal government through ADOT and all that. And you've been using those dollars, and that's what you're going to continue. For that transit hub, where's the funding going to come from for that?
It's from the federal subsidy, federal funding.
So that's still using dollars coming from the federal government and not on the backs of the Lake Havasu taxpayers.
Yeah, well, it's going to provide it's going to provide the need for having a hub, but a centralized piece. But, there's a lot of win-wins and there's a lot of decision-making done to put that hub there. But we really feel that not having a bunch of full-size buses driving throughout the city and bringing everybody back into the center or taking them to where they want to be with smaller vehicles will be the next step, the next evolution step for the city for transit. And the hub also will have bike racks there, bike lockers, we'll have parking, and also it connects to the walking paths. And it's right on downtown, right on there. So what we want to do is we want to bring everybody to the center of town, and they can either take one of the fixed routes and circulate, one of the three that'll be running. But I think that's the next step to go for transit. The match,
is there a city match for that?
Yes, it's 20%, so it'll be about 100,000.
Okay. No, I think where you're talking about putting it is absolutely the right location. And what you've done to leverage the federal dollars and not use tax dollars. And now you're going to be able to use even more of those federal dollars to build additional infrastructure. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd also, on that, I'd like to, thank Jess for his looking at kind of my vision and our vision. And since 2018, we took funds in 2018. We obligated to take them, but we weren't ready. So we gave them back to the state. So this has been a process, as everybody knows. And, Jess's leadership also was helping because he was, he wants to see something happen here, but at the right time and for the right price. So I give kudos and hats off to Jess for standing behind me on getting this vision come where it's at. So it's pretty nice to see it.
Yeah, and Councilmember Lane, in our CIP discussion last week, the transit hub is in there identified as one of those CIP projects, and I believe it was highlighted earlier this week. So. As Councilmember Lane mentioned, we have been talking about this for about 3 years, and some of us have been there since the beginning. So maybe we'll just summarize kind of what's happening, because we're so close to it that it might be difficult to know what's happening. So historically, we had a transit system many years ago called HAT that were large buses that would drive around town fairly empty, and they wouldn't have people in them. We then had the 2010 census. When that happened, we went over 50,000 people. So the way that the grant funding came about, it impacted that funding. And so it didn't make financial sense anymore to offer transit in that same way. And at that point, we really had a lack of transit options for our citizens. We started working towards what is now known as Havasu Mobility, again, to get our most vulnerable citizens around our community to doctor's offices and to grocery stores and those types of things. There is a general fund contribution to that. And the intent when we started with this transit plan was, how do we keep the same general fund contribution that we have today, but expand it using these grant dollars that are available to us already? And so that's what everyone embarked on. And this is now what, after a public engagement, many open sessions with the public engaged in the process, the planning efforts, obviously the efforts of Mr. Cypress and his team, the leadership of Jess and his team, were able to come up with this plan. And so in a very simple measure, we'll have a central fixed route system that runs basically the McCulloch corridor. The intent there is obviously to pick up students from Mojave Community College, ASU, get people into those centralized area where that hub is, and then obviously have a north and south that eventually gets folks over to the shops and those areas. Those would be the areas that those smaller buses, 14 passenger or less ADA compliant buses would operate. And then the Flex would still offer that mobility service, which is really a fantastic service for our citizens. And then going direct in a zone fashion, some of that technology would be some of that rideshare technology that we see today. But in a council meeting, maybe two or three council meetings ago, it was approved for some software management, and that'll allow citizens that aren't technologically savvy to still be able to call into dispatch and get their ride from there. But if they're in the end zone, let's just say the south side zone, and they live over on South McCulloch and they need to go to Dollar General or they need to go to Bash's, that would be within that same zone. So they would get a car, pick up there, take them to Bash's. They would do whatever it is they do. They would then call a ride again from Bash's to get back home. So now if they are going from their home on South McCulloch and they want to go to Walmart, they would be taken down to the transit center and then get on that connector. So that's the kind of what the intent was, and still the same general fund contribution that we have today will be achieved with these additional grants that are available. So then the discussion can be, well, what happens if we just don't accept the grant money? Well, it's not going to lessen our tax burden for any Lake Havasu City taxpayer at all, because those funds will just get returned to other cities and towns that are running a transit system within their area. And so again, we've had some really strong public engagement that was really fantastic, coming in and talking about the needs of our citizens for transit, where they need to go. And they were able to put together all of these elements to come up with this kind of three-pronged approach that is going to limit the size of the buses and the transit and increase the usability for our citizens to get to the areas that are most identified in our community. So it wasn't just working on folks getting them to the doctors and to food, but it was also quality of life stuff, entertainment, and how do we incorporate students and the workforce and all of those types of pieces as well. And what you presented here this evening, Mr. Cypress, is a fantastic reflection of that work that the citizens did. And again, your team to be able to put together something that is workable, affordable, and will achieve all of those goals. Yes. So thank you for that presentation.
Good summary. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, Councilmember Dolan?
Yeah, just want to thank you for all your hard work. It's impressive, and I'm looking forward to it. Just a quick question. So the shops and Walmart, is that technically part of Zone 3, even though it's that far out?
Well, we call that the Express. So that's going to be the one that's not Zone 3.
Okay, so now somebody within Zone 3 does have the limits. What's on the map?
Yeah, so south, we have South, Central, and North.
Okay.
So Zone 3 would be up to North Palo Verde, kind of around that area.
Okay, so that's the boundary of what direct would work with.
But if they wanted to come into town in through the hub, it would only be $3.
Okay, then once we're open for the Express. Okay, that makes sense. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lynn?
He answered one of the questions. I'm just confused on the fixed routes. Does that mean like continually through the day it's going to go through those routes? So like if I get dropped off at Walmart, how long am I waiting at Walmart for the next bus to come?
Right now we're approximately like 35 minutes, half hour.
Okay.
It's acceptable with, you can go in and grab something, and by the time you walk out, it should be there. But if you want to do shopping and go to JCPenney's, go here, go there, you'll know, and we'll post them. Initially, we're going to run that fixed route, probably like 8 to 3, 8 to 2. Remember, those have to be piloted first so we can check timing on it. And we're trying to get every place everybody would want to go, but not keep them time constrained. So they're saying, I got to go, but be within reason. So we don't have somebody back every 2 hours, because that's not going to work.
One quick question. Does it go anywhere near the high school?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Moses?
So I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. So let's throw a hypothetical. If I'm sitting here at City Hall and I want to get a ride out to Walmart, I could have two options. Once we get the express route out to the mall, I could take a bus down to the express route, then hop on the express route, then go out there, or I could just call the direct. And,
No, direct's only in the 3 zones, which stop, the north zone stops at Palo Verde North.
Okay. So let's take a different, let's say it is within those zones. Would every rider have the choice between direct or fixed route?
Yeah, the direct's going to be quicker if they want to get somewhere like, within the 15, 20 minute cycle.
But the price difference is how you're going to differentiate between the two, right?
Yes. So fixed route's obviously going to be less because it's just looping. Okay. And the direct is going to your house or wherever you're at.
I could just see the direct being maybe overwhelmed.
Well, like I said, direct's going to probably be what pushes us to that next level. Is because if we get people on board with direct and get them educated on how the system works, which that's our goal, the first 12 months, is they're going to want to come into the hub for their day and they can figure out where they're going from there. And they won't have to wait too long for a ride, or they can walk down McCulloch, hit the restaurants, walk all the way down to the bridge. And the actual second route we have planned is actually the hotel restaurant one, and that stops at the Hampton Holiday Inn. So we're picking up people from the channel, bringing them uptown to eat or go shopping and bringing them back, and it goes to the resort as well. Okay. So we try to cover all bases that we could within a small area.
Great, thank you. And then I have a couple of other questions that probably aimed more towards Jess, but I just want to make sure that the census, we're starting to get some results from the census. Anything going to change our funding going forward with some of the early results that we're seeing?
Sure, Mayor Scheer, Councilmember Moses. No, I think the allocation, the dollars received by the city won't be impacted by any population change. That 50,000 threshold was a very big one, and that's the. I don't think over and above 50,000. Patrick, is there another tier down the road of
200,000 is the break point for the next one?
So we're safe there. Yeah. And then we've also had discussions with the changing of the threshold for the MPO. Is that going to affect anything?
No, some of the tie-in, Mayor Sheehy, Councilmember Moses, some of the tie-in with the discussions in the past with the MPO and transit, essentially what the MPO was, how that was viable for the city and for the community, was they led that effort. They were able to acquire some federal funds to do the transit study. So we are able to get public participation. We're able to kind of see what the demands are, the expectations are from the public, and go through that process. So the MPO funded that study, the MPO administered that study. And then essentially what happened at that point is the MPO took that study and handed it to Patrick and said, okay, go get it done. And that's where Patrick's at right now.
Great. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lynn, and then we'll go to Councilmember Campbell.
I just got a quick question. Do we know what the times will be, or is that going to be determined on the pilot program?
Yeah, we'll confirm what the times are. We know what they are pretty much now, but what we're doing is we're practicing throughout the day, different traffic patterns and, end of school time and lunchtime, so we can actually dial it down. But remember, it's our own unique transit. So if we find pockets or gaps in service, we're not going to run it for 90 days and say, hey, this is a bad idea. We're going to change it, because we have that option in our software. And then because we're using technology base, we can update everything on the city's website and let everybody know. And so just, technology is what's pushing us forward and to catch up. So
like how late in the PM?
The latest will be 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Okay.
So basically, once we get to that point, and we don't want to take business away from the private shuttles in town. They run really early. They run after 6. But, our core is the visitors, the people that live in town, the workers, and just everybody, kids going to middle school and coming home. And so that's what we're after. So we're not after the 6 o'clock crowd. It doesn't, because it's not cost effective for us to go that late.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes, Councilmember Lane brought up a really good point, and in marketing, and the word bridge, it says it's a fixed route and it says downtown corridor. Is there any way that you can, through this pilot program, look at possibly taking, if you're on the McCulloch downtown corridor, you just go down a little bit farther and you're unloading them at the bridge. You don't have to go down underneath the bridge, but at least what Councilmember Lane made, that great comment that if I see the word bridge on it, I'm going to think somehow or another that's going to take me to the bridge as well. So instead of changing or branding the whole thing, it sounds like it'd be easier to incorporate that into the downtown corridor.
Well, actually,
route.
each route stops. One stops at 151 Swanson, which is about 300 or 400 yards from the channel. And the other one stops at Holiday Inn, which is on the upward ramp of the fountain. So we basically are at the bridge, as close as we want to get with a bus. We'll put you there.
That makes a lot of sense to me now.
So, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think to follow up on Councilmember Moses, your question, you're talking maybe about the Metropolitan Statistical area increasing from 50,000 to 75,000. So Mr. Knutson, I don't know if you have wanted to just talk a little bit on that point. There's been some discussion through the Office of Budget and Management at the federal level to change that threshold. We seem pretty confident, even if that threshold were to be changed, that the funding mechanism would remain as it is today. But I'll let maybe Mr. Knutson talk about that and address maybe that specific point.
Yeah, Mayor Shi, Councilmember Moses, I apologize if I misunderstood the question. Yeah, there's some conversations going around in the news a couple of months ago about changing metropolitan planning areas to micropolitan planning areas. And so we're still not quite sure what that means. And there's some conversations that are happening in DC through the Office of Management and Budgeting. It's not a legislative decision that's made through an act of Congress or anything of the like. It's a bureaucratic decision that'll be made forthcoming. Mr. Kozlowski on the city staff has reached out and talked to some folks over there to get as much information as possible. There's a lot of unknowns what that might look like. We're told it's not going to affect funding for whether it's a metropolitan or micropolitan planning organization, and the implementation of that change, if it does occur, wouldn't take place for 3+ years. But as in terms of what we're talking about for a metropolitan planning organization, micropolitan planning organization, they helped us a lot with kind of the onset of kind of setting this up. What we're talking about in terms of the funding that's going through for the transit is goes through the FTA, Federal Transportation Agency, and then filters through. We used to go through the state, and now we're a direct recipient on that. So it's a lot of words, a lot of possible changes moving forward. But none that's going to impact the funding levels that we foresee.
None of this funding is tied to the fact that we have an MPO, kind of like the Kitty Hawk signal that we're doing on Acoma. That is there because we have an MPO. This is not the case with this funding for the transit, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. There's an indirect, a symbiotic relationship between the MPO and how we got to this situation. But the pools of funding are two separate pools of funding.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, the MPO provided great assistance in the planning. So they were able to help us do all the outreach to get the plan put together. Mr. Cypress and his team then are able to implement it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Those dollars.
Thank you for reading my mind.
Yes, you're welcome. Any other questions or comments? Okay. This is a public hearing. Oh, or Mr. Knutson, do you want to go and then we'll open the public hearing?
Sure. I guess I kind of put you on the spot, Mr. Cypress, but I know how good you are at your job. Could you talk to the council, the public, about the number of buses that have been purchased over the last 12 months that have been approved by council, and what that plans are going forward in terms of what that looks like?
Sure. Currently, we've received one bus. We purchased 2 more. We're receiving that one in May, and the next one will be in after the first of the year in 22. Those will be for the fixed route. The one that we brought out tonight for a sample is to give you an idea what they'll look like. This one's going to be our universal backup, and it will also run the express to the shops when needed. So right now we've ordered 3. Council's approved 3. We've also ordered 2 new Ford small SUV Escapes. Those are going to be for microtransit. Those are arriving in May. And for next fiscal year, we're purchasing 3 Dodge ProMaster ADA accessible bigger vans that just have a ramp and they're actually low floor, so they don't have a lift or anything. And the ramp actually comes out almost level with the sidewalk. So those have all been approved by council. They're being funded through the FTA, and some do not even have a match, but most of them have a small match because when they're matched with ADA vehicles, the match drops down to like 15% to 20%. So that's a big deal when you're purchasing a vehicle that's $80,000 and you're paying, less than 20 on that.
Yeah, great. Thank you. All right, this is a public hearing. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. If anyone would like to address the city council on this matter, you can just make your way to the podium. We also are receiving public comment via email at cityclerk@lhcaz.gov 1 hour prior to our hearings. We did not receive any on this particular item, but with that being said, I'll close the public hearing if no one has any questions. Bring it back to council for any final comments, questions, or thoughts. All right, so again, as Mr. Cypress mentioned, for those viewing at home, you can go to lhcaz.gov/transit to see all of the posters that are around the chambers here this evening. There also is a bus out front that we can go take a look at. For those at home, maybe we can convince Steve to take a photo or something and insert it into the video. So hopefully you can see that when you're viewing this. But Mr. Cypress and Jeanette and the transit team, thank you for all your work and thank you for all of this information. And we look forward to getting this launched. So
all right.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, we have a motion from Councilmember Lane and a second from Councilmember Moses. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.